Start with our Pledge of Allegiance, if y'all would stand and join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have a consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, receive a proclamation declaring the month of September as National Recovery Month. And we have people from Mirror here.
Good evening. Mental and substance use disorders, including co-occurring disorders, affect all communities nationwide. But with commitment and support, people with these disorders can achieve healthy lifestyles and lead rewarding lives in recovery. By seeking help, people who experience mental and substance use disorders and co-occurring disorders can embark on a new path toward improved health and overall wellness. The focus of National Recovery Month each September is to celebrate their journey, as recovery is for everyone, every person, every family, and every community. Recovery Month spreads the message that treatment is effective and people can and do recover every day. Whereas the impact of mental and substance use disorders and co-occurring disorders are apparent in our local community, and 33,800 estimated people in Harvey County are affected by these conditions. And whereas through Recovery Month, people become more aware and able to recognize the signs of mental and substance use disorders and co-occurring disorders, and encourage people in need of treatment and recovery services to seek help. And whereas managing the effects of these conditions helps individuals achieve healthy lifestyles, both physically and emotionally. And whereas the Recovery Month observance continues to work to improve the lives of those affected by mental and substance use disorders and co-occurring disorders by raising awareness of these disorders and educating communities about the effective treatment and recovery services that are available.
Now, therefore, I, Rod Cry, Mayor of Newton, do hereby proclaim the month of September of 2024 as National Recovery Month in Newton, Kansas, and call upon all of our community to observe this month with compelling programs and events that support this year's observance. So I need a motion to approve this proclamation as presented.
I so move.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And could you introduce yourself and the people that are with you?
Absolutely. I'm Ashley Rhodes. I'm the Director of Human Resources. And then we have Alice Shue. She's a counselor here at our Newton Residential Facility. And Shannon Hochschild, she is a case manager at our Newton Outpatient Facility.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming out.
You guys want a picture? We'll get the mayor to come down with you. Yeah, he's coming down. Always have to move out of the way. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thanks, ladies.
There's Steve Robbie. Don't move.
Okay. Item number 4, 2025 budget. Donna.
Good evening, everyone. First, we'll talk about the revenue neutral rate. The revenue neutral rate was provided to us by Harvey County Clerk. The rate given was expressed in mills and would generate the same property tax revenue as levied in the previous tax year using the city's '24 assessed valuation. The city's valuation increased from $151,180,000 to $171,243,000, or 12.7%. Per the R&R, the mill levy was set to decrease from 72.361 to 64.485. If we had not informed the county clerk of our intention to exceed this rate, which we did by July 20th. We also published a notification as directed 10 days before this meeting, and we did that on July 27th. In keeping the R&R of 64.485 mills, the mill levy would fall by 7.876 mills, which is equal to a decrease of $1,348,710. During budget workshops, several options were discussed by the commission, and the commission ultimately decided to take 11% of the valuation increase, which would reduce the city's mill by 1 mil. So we're going to 71.361 if you approve that tonight. We were at 72.361. The current mill levy for the general fund would decrease by 0.878 mills. Library would decrease by 0.087, and the special liability would decrease by a little bit of 0.035. This would maintain the general fund reserve balance close to the required level of 15%. You can now open the budget, or the R&R hearing, and then you'll have to, if you decide to approve the R&R, you will approve it during the public hearing on a roll call vote.
On a roll call vote? Okay. I will now open the R&R public hearing. And at this time, we ask for anybody that's here that wants to make any comment about the R&R rate, or ask questions, or make comments, to come to the podium and tell us your name and what your address is, and fire away. Hi there.
I'm Jackie Burt, and we're actually fairly new to Newton. We got this in the mail. We're trying to figure it out. It looks like our taxes are going up, and we're here to find out why and where that money's going, and would like to know more about it. So that's why we're here.
Okay.
I will answer some of that on the next slide if you'd like me to,
Okay.
but I don't know how far you want me to go into that.
Well, I will tell you, we've had, you're new to the community, so here in a little bit, I'll give quite a bit of history, and I'll go way back 20 years. Just to give you an idea of growth rates that Newton's had, and tie them into the inflation rate. But if you've got something that you want to share.
I think it's real important to be distinct between what are mill levy increases versus valuation increases. Where did that additional revenue really come from?
I will tell you that this group's done some pretty extensive long-range planning, and we've really charted a path that seems to be working right now. Without going into great detail, because I'm going to go into great detail here in a little bit, and I'll probably bore some of you to death, but there's some things that you need to know. I did anticipate a lot more people coming tonight based on some of the social media posts that I saw, and some of the private texts and emails that I got from different people that aren't here, that apparently were satisfied with some of the information I gave them, but this is the R&R meeting, so we really aren't talking about budget things right now. We're talking about a budget lid, and let's go deeper into the budget on the next, because we are having an open meeting, meeting on the actual budget itself right after we get through with this. All this does is say that we can spend up to a certain amount, and then when we talk about the budget, we'll tell you what we're spending. So, and that's the presentation that you're talking about.
It was very, I'm just
Yeah.
very short,
Yeah, okay.
because we went into everything,
Yeah,
so many meetings. I hadn't really come prepared to go over all that again.
sure.
I mean, I can try to do some by memory.
Well, and we did some of that over, what, a series of 8 or 10 budget sessions that we really dug deep into stuff.
I would say that staff or ourselves would be willing to discuss particulars of the budget with you after the meeting. Yes,
Sure,
definitely.
absolutely.
And we're all here
And
for that.
And we want you to know, yeah. So okay. Anybody else want to make any comments about everybody says, what's the R&R? And we're going, well, we didn't do it. State did that, so.
Yes, it's just that the revenue neutral rate was a law that started in 2021, different from the tax lid law that we used to have. It's just a different way of, they take what taxes you received last year, and they figure out how many meals it takes to get to that amount of taxes using the new valuation. So if your valuation had went up, your meals are going to go down. And if your valuation decreased, then your meals need to go up to stay in that same to receive those same tax dollars. So that's what this R&R is. And when they go down like that, we don't get to capture any of our increased valuation. That helps us.
Without having a public hearing and actually
Right,
saying that we're going to do
And
that.
yes,
Okay,
that's what we've been doing this summer.
okay.
One more piece of that too is that, some people don't know, well, how does the valuation increase like that? And it's based on the last year of actual sales in all of our neighborhoods. This is the market rate of what property has been selling for. And obviously, as we know, because of inflation pressures on all fronts, property has gone up. And that's what that 12%, 12.7% is based on. It's not some fabricated, the appraiser comes out and just comes up with a number, off the top of his head. It's based on sales that have actually happened.
And it's not the city raising the mill levy.
No.
Yeah,
I think that's real important to understand, because it can either be a tax increase by a mill levy increase made by city decision, or it can be the valuation increase in the property values, and that's the case here. So when you mentioned that it looks like the taxes are going up, well, it's really due to the valuation increase.
And we say 12.7%, that's the average. Some people's homes went up 3%, some people's went up 15, 16%. But that's just the average overall that it went up, depending on your neighborhood or what you did to your home.
and where did you move here from? Texas, okay, yeah. Our real estate taxes are lower than they are in Texas, but. Yeah. Yeah,
The way
you
it's
don't have
calculated
the
or
income
presented.
tax, yeah. It's hard to compare what you had in Texas with. Well, it's hard for me
That's
to
the new
understand.
form.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
should have seen the one last year.
Yeah, it is very confusing, and they've really done nothing to make it less confusing, so, yeah.
I'm new to the commission this year, so this is a learning process for me as well. I'm still trying to figure out how all that works. But I do want to say that the city employees work really hard. There's a lot of studies that go along with their valuations and things that they have to come up with and present to us. And then there's negotiation that goes on between us and them, and try to find a happy medium for everybody and still get you know, the needs met for the community as well. So I appreciate that you're here asking those questions, and I wish we had more citizens come forward and ask those questions, and so they can have that understanding, because there's a lot of people that just don't, and I was one of them before I came to commission.
So you're saying that it's based upon sale of real estate, is what you're saying?
Appraised values.
The
gone up.
valuation increase, yes.
They're called comparable sales. Pardon me?
There are people moving here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there are people moving
Well, we're
here
glad to have you.
that are elevating
Yes.
the sale prices of some of the homes. I know of 3 families that moved here from California and paid over ask for those houses, and that affects the assessed values.
Joe?
Yeah, my name's Joe Solomon. I live at 219 Sheffield Street, Newton. You're saying this is based off house sales, but yet
The-
we're hearing off our staff people have did evaluations, all this. Is it based off house sales or what your people are evaluating? At the same time, what's that number of house sales from last year that we actually sold? What are we basing this off of, percentage-wise?
Well, the other-
10% of what all in Newton?
That's a
The county.
county function.
That's the, yeah, it's a county function, not the city.
Yeah. It's a number they give us, and when they do an appraisal, they have what they call comparable sales. And they look at houses like the one that they're appraising that was sold and what they sold for. And they try to get at least 3 of those, and those go into a computation. If you've ever protested the value of your house, and I have, if you ever protest the value of your house that they appraise it at, you get a hearing. You have the
Yeah.
right to, within a certain period of time, to go in and sit down and say, hey, how'd you come up with this number? And they'll pull out the sheets and they'll show you what their comparable sales were. And if you can convince them that the comps that they used aren't really that comparable to your house, because maybe one of them has a shop out back and yours doesn't, then oftentimes they'll lower the value. So it's part of the process, and it's worth pursuing. So
Back to my question.
yeah.
What if we only sold 10 houses last year? So you're basing all your evaluations off 10 sales?
No, not necessarily.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
They
What's
might
that
have to go.
percentage we're looking at?
They might have to go back to an earlier period of time when houses sold, and that would just give you more clout to try to talk them into believing that a house wouldn't sell for that anymore.
Still, they're basing their values off what? 10 sales? Or are they basing them off 5 years' worth?
I think there's been so many sales that, I mean, you're asking a question that's not reality, Joe.
May I ask,
Yeah.
may I mention something here? I
Sure.
think it's important. If I were you, I would talk to one of your state representatives.
Yeah.
Because I recall at a recent chamber breakfast, one of those state representatives noting that it was a state mandate to bring appraised values up
It is.
to where they should be.
Yeah.
So I don't know so much about it being based on a certain amount of house sales, more so as it was a state mandate, and apparently it'll happen again next year.
Yeah.
So, so that's where we lose any
So
control.
now the
and
state
even
is the one
county.
that did the evaluations.
No,
According-
the state
didn't
required
do
us to
them.
get into compliance, because
Yes.
when they did the audit,
The county, not
The county does it by state mandate,
yeah,
brings them up.
what the state audited the county, and they said that we were out of compliance with their state appraisals of the same properties. And they
Okay,
do
we're
that on a test basis.
We're selling or building a lot more houses.
Yeah.
Are we still, I'm sure I'm not going to get this right, are we still giving a 10% break or whatever on
No.
people that build them and
We-
don't sell them right away?
We had a program to stimulate buying in the very beginning of this, where if a developer signed up for a program, that we reimbursed them for interest that they paid from the time that house was inspected and given an occupancy permit. We reimbursed them for the interest from that day until the date that they got the house sold.
So is that still in effect?
No, we did away with that
I'm just
long.
asking because
Yeah.
that's out of the blue.
And that was actually in effect for, what, year and a half, 2 years, and we spent a
Yeah.
total of maybe
Sure it was even a
$3,000.
full
I
2
don't even
years.
think it was
Yeah.
full. It was like 18 months or so.
Yeah.
It might have been in 21 or 2021.
I knew we did it for a while.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Mhm.
sure if
It
we're
actually
still doing
stimulated, we got quite a few new houses out of it, and
We did.
didn't, we paid less than $5,000.
Hmm.
And we'd allocated, was it $85,000 to that?
I
Yeah.
think it was, because we're using it for rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a great program,
It
kind of made some people mad,
Mhm.
but people started building houses.
No,
Because we
that's
took
good.
the
I'm
risk.
just, I'm
We
just saying we're
accepted the
building
risk.
more. I was just
Yeah.
curious if we still implemented
Yeah.
that or not.
Nope.
The other thing, the state is, we've heard murmurs that they want us to raise the valuations, or that they want the valuations to go up another 8%.
Yeah, next year.
Up over and above what it's already gone up to 12.7, so
Get a hold of your
it's a
legislators.
tough thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice of them to think of us.
Yeah.
But that, I wish they would do the same for everybody that's on fixed incomes, like the elderly, because they're definitely not raising theirs this kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I see that's going on from my side of it in the city, that are we going to tax the elderly out of their homes? Because we have no programs that I'm aware of in place to help them to be able to keep their homes.
They do have a homestead property tax that they can file for on their state income tax return, and I know, I used to do that for my mom when she owned her home.
And there's a couple other programs that Rebecca has introduced this summer.
Right. There is specific programs also in addition to that for senior citizens and specific veteran groups as well to have those taxes rebated.
Could you post those on your city website?
Yes,
Sure.
I think we have in one presentation. We can
Yeah.
certainly redo that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good evening.
Good evening. Merlin Eck, 308 Lakeshore Drive here in Newton, Rolling Hills area. To my knowledge, the only 2 homes that have been sold are under foreclosure. Nobody can afford to buy them. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. Next step then is to get the motion,
Pass the R&R,
and then we
Roll
vote on
call
it
vote.
individually. Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And I can't think of anybody's name or anything. Denise will take the roll call vote
Okay,
once you make your motions.
so we need a motion to adopt.
And that resolution number would be G1342.
That makes it easy.
I moved that we approve G1342.
Okay, we got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Now for the roll call vote.
Okay, so you'll need to answer yay or nay when I call your name. So we'll start with Commissioner Kane,
Yay.
Commissioner Watson,
Yay.
Mayor Cry,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Stinnett,
Yay.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yay.
Thank you. You can close the public hearing now. The motion has carried.
Okay, well, me and the train will close the R&R public hearing. And now we need to conduct a public hearing on the 2025 budget. Okay, before I open that meeting, I've jotted down a whole bunch of things that I think people need to hear. I'm not going to read them all. I thought there might be a group of people show up that were real active on Facebook and through some other stuff this past week. But there's some things that I want you to know, and some history out there, and I want to talk a little bit about the pathway that we've been on that started almost 7 years ago. Here's my comments. So you see setting before you, in my humble opinion, one of the best commissions you could possibly have. We're far from perfect. We're 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats working together in elected positions where party affiliation doesn't matter. And I think that's very important. You should always have your best people setting up here, making decisions for you. Not only are we working well together with each other, the secret sauce is that these commissioners are working at a very high level with city management with whom they have carved out a relationship of respect in a very fun working environment. We actually enjoy being together. The quality of our management staff is remarkable. Newton has gained the reputation of being a destination where municipal managers and employees want to locate, and we've been blessed as commissioners to work with people that deeply care about this community. Our staff has been very transparent with the commissioners. I don't remember the last time I was surprised by something that I felt like I should have known. And as a group, your commissioners and city staff have been and continue to be the most transparent municipality I've worked with. And I say this from the perspective of being a CPA in public practice for over 25 years, dealing directly with municipal finances and also being involved in economic development for close to 40 years. As an elected official, as a chairperson for county economic development organizations, as an elected official that's a member of regional economic development organizations, and also as a developer and consultant myself that has had the blessing to have experience working with other municipalities across the country. One of the things that's been important to me during my lifetime is trying to make any community I live in better. It can be rather humbling when you run for elective office. I've done it several times. And one thing I've noticed in this process, that it's very difficult to get people to run for local elected office. It takes money to do so, or friends with money, and that can be dangerous. And losing an election can hurt in a way that's hard to describe, and thankfully it's only happened to me once. And it especially hurts when you run because your intent is to make a difference in your community. As a society, even here locally, I see a voting public that largely doesn't see the value in voting. Only a small percentage turn out to actually vote. This past election primary cycle, only 17% of registered voters took the time to vote. And I don't know if people didn't think the candidates were worth voting for, or they just tapped out because they don't think their vote matters. I also saw quite a few people on social media ask where to go to find out more information about the candidates before they voted. But I also attended candidate forums where you could put all those that attended in a pretty small room. So these posts also told me that most people that posted don't read newspapers and didn't take the time to watch the candidate forums that were posted on social media. Right now, due to the national political environment, and to an extent at the state level, their political environment, I think people are angry with what they see happening, and it doesn't take much to rile people up. I also know we live in a world where there are people that use anger that's so close to the surface all the time that it doesn't take much prodding to bring that anger to the surface. And unfortunately, from that often comes social media posts that, at least when it pertains to the city of Newton, is just the posting person's opinion on an issue that's not backed by truth and certainly not backed by any research they have done on any issue they posted about. Skipping a couple parts here so it doesn't get too long. I want to start out by saying that it irritates the hell out of me when someone posts that the city wants to raise taxes. We don't want to raise your taxes. We don't want to raise your water rates. In fact, I think my taxes are too high. I think my water rates are too high. I think every city commissioner sitting here probably thinks that too. But history is history. We were elected into the history of every decision made by every commissioner since this city was born. There are no look-backs, there's no do-overs, there's no walking away from history. You start where somebody else left off and you try to steer the ship in the right direction. Speaking of history, when I look at the history of Newton and its study of its history of growth, if you paid any attention to anything I've said over the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years, you heard me talk about Newton and its lack of growth, especially commercial and industrial growth over the last 5 or 6 decades. Our assessed valuation in the year 2000 was $104,470,000. The assessed valuation in 2023 was $138,964,000. That's a 33% increase over 23-year period, an average of 1.43% per year, and that's just pretty pathetic. The 2024 assessed valuation went up to $151,880,000, largely due, like we talked about, to an increase in the value of personal residence because a state audit of appraisals required our county auditor to get the values within an acceptable range. Now let's look at inflation. Our federal government has what they call the core inflation rate. It's the number they use to make themselves look as if the inflation rate isn't really as bad as it is. The core inflation rate doesn't include food prices or energy costs. Our federal government says they don't include these because they are too volatile. They think it distorts the numbers. So the food you eat and the fuel you put in your car are not included in the core inflation rate. When you look at just the core inflation rate from 2000 to 2024, it's 64.7%. That number in the last 3 years is 16.9%, but if you add groceries and fuel in, that number would be a lot higher, especially considering the fact that the percentage of a family's budget, a larger percentage of that budget actually goes for food and fuel than almost any other item that they might have in that core inflation rate. The average price for the whole year of regular unleaded gasoline in 2020 was $2.17. The average price of regular unleaded gas in 2023 was $3.52, which is a 62% increase. And depending on where you grab your statistics for the increase in food costs have increased from 2020 to 2023 from somewhere between 20 and 25%. Personally, I think it's higher than that. So if you look at the gap between even the core inflation rate, which is 64.7%, and the increase in our valuation, which is only 33%, it's pretty easy to see why taxes have gone up dramatically since 2000. And most of the assessed valuation growth came from residential property, and the lion's share came from increased values on existing personal residences. So the growth in assessed value was greatly outpaced by inflation, over double when you add in food and fuel. And the burden of the increase on the local tax budget was paid mostly by homeowners and people that pay rent because of tax increases passed on through their rent. Couple that with the fact that 36% of our assessed valuation is exempt from paying tax because property that is owned by not-for-profits that don't pay the same taxes that everybody else does. So it's no surprise that people are overtaxed in this community because not-for-profits require city services, thank you, that are paid for by all of the tax-paying property owners. So simply put, communities where inflation rate exceeds the increase in their assessed valuation are limiting what they can do to maintain and improve their community if they can't figure out how to grow their tax base. They can reduce spending, which usually requires reducing services, perhaps letting some employees go. They can defer maintenance, which always eventually costs more. Or they can increase revenue, and that's just simple city business. And in my mind, the only way to increase revenue is to increase your tax base with a concentration on new development or growing industry that you already have. 7 years ago, when I was appointed to this commission to replace David Nygaard, I spent a great deal of time digging into city finance and the history of this community's growth. Your commission worked together. We worked hard together, looking for pathways to properly fund local government while stabilizing the local tax burden. And as we did our work, several things were obvious. Again, tax base growth was dismal and had been for 5 or 6 decades. We had aging infrastructure with lots of deferred maintenance, and we had lots of equipment that needed to be replaced. And we seemed to just be holding on, hoping something good would happen out at the logistics park. City employees didn't really seem to have anything to be excited about at the time. So we took a hard look at everything. Your commissioners and staff evolved into a great working relationship as they charted a long-range path that we hoped and prayed would put Newton on a long-needed growth mode. And I love the analogy that Leroy Kane used, especially back then when he talked about this plan. He said it's like the Queen Mary when it needs to turn around. You can't just turn it around on a dime. It takes time, it takes patience. You turn just a little bit at a time before you know it, you're finally going in the right direction. We knew at that time there was no short-term solution to fixing this long-term problem. For the first time in 3 years, for the first 3 years of this long-range plan, there was no increase in the mill levy, as some commissioners, including myself, had made the pledge not to ask for any tax increase that we couldn't justify until we actually needed it. That was followed by the famous 8 mil tax increase, passionately called by a local guy that spent a lot of time talking to us, but he called it the largest tax increase in the history of Newton. And it was even diminished. To me, I felt like that was intellectually dishonest because we'd gone 3 years prior to that without any increase. So early in this plan, we did a survey of what Newton wanted as amenities. We do represent you, and you should have a say. And we took that data and plugged it into a long-range plan. And due to that survey, as part of our plan, in the last 7 years, the swim pool complex was rebuilt and added on to. New baseball fields and structures at the baseball complex were built. A new library just got finished. Lots of sewer and water infrastructure has been replaced. New turf has been put at Fisher Field, and our Parks and Recreation Department moved into a very adequate, different facility rather than building something we couldn't afford. A very intentional effort to change the culture of what Newton feels about its own self-perception was a very important part of this long-range plan, and in just a short period of time, our change in culture became obvious to our economic development prospects. And lo and behold, Newton moved itself way up on the candidates' list of sites to select as prospects came to take a look at our community. As part of this plan, we restructured community development and made deliberate efforts to get the right people appointed to the right positions in a way that enhanced our chances for successful development that would lead to increasing our tax base. All committees are working together with overlapping board members, so each committee is keenly aware of what other development activities are happening with the other entities. Economic Development, Main Street, Kansas, the Chamber of Commerce, our land bank, and all Harvey County municipal entities are working together at a very high level. And as a result, with all the amenity improvements and with the change of culture to the culture of working together, we've successfully recruited almost $500 million of industrial development and somewhere north of 600 new jobs that have or will come into the Newton pipeline. In addition to that, there are between 600 and 800 new houses that are at some level of development or being built or have already been built. We know we are in tough times right now. We know that there are people out there on fixed income that are being squeezed to the max. We also know that the political climate is very volatile. There's a lack of trust at the federal government that's probably at an all-time high. Republicans think it's Democrats' faults, and the Democrats think it's the Republican fault. And people are angry, and quite frankly, we have a voting public that's easy to anger into voting out, setting local officials just to see if things might get better at some point. But I'm here to tell you that since I've been here, I've never seen a person run based on some single issue that was ever able to deliver on their promise of lowering water rates or reducing taxes. In closing, I want to say, when you look at these people setting up here, I've never worked with a group of people that have worked harder or cared more about the people they represent. For any of you that have taken the time to come to a budget meeting or to watch it at your convenience on a video on our website, you know how we toil over the budget decisions that are made. We're not rubber stampers. We know the decisions that we make affect people's lives. I think I'll just stop there. I've got other things that I was going to say, but between a very scratchy throat and just appreciating you being here to ask questions and be a part of today's meetings. I just want to thank you for allowing us to serve. Mm-hmm. We love what we do. We get along quite well, and I'm just thankful to be a part of this group. So anyway, with that, we will go into our public hearing for the 2025 budget. So that is open at this time.
I'll just briefly say that the commission worked through several budget work sessions. This budget is the result of that work. Total budget expenditures for 2025 are $63,358,159. This amount includes $3,760,000 of reserve balances. So the actual expenditures for 2025 are $59,597,000. As the cost of supplies and fuels go up, the cost of public improvements also increases. As a service-based industry, as these projects increase, so does the need for personnel. So this budget provides for new positions in general, water, and wastewater. It also includes new playground equipment, and it sets aside money for a wage increase after a compensation study is completed. Over the past few years, city staff has worked diligently to cut costs and expenses, delayed projects and maintenance where possible, extended the life of vehicles and equipment while accommodating growth and development, and maintaining all city services at a minimum standard. All the departments will continue to diligently seek any cost-saving measures that are available to them. I just had some slides in here showing you what we've covered before. Mm-hmm. But the summary is that we're going to take 11% of the increased valuation, keeping our general fund balance at a reserve near 15% as part of our policies. We have seen increases in the use of money and sales tax, but this is the first time in 3 years that we have no ARPA funding to help us through. I think this is a good budget this year, and staff recommends approving it as presented.
And how much ARPA funding have we had over the last 2 or 3 years, roughly?
2.8 million. We split that up in for 3 different years.
Okay. So do I have anybody that wants to talk about the budget now or ask questions or?
What's the percent increase between last year and this year?
11% is what we're going to take of the increased valuation.
Yeah, okay.
It went up 12.7% total. So we're backing off a mill.
My name's Erin Nyman. The ARPA funds, what did you use those ARPA funds for over the last 3 years, and how are you replacing that money?
We
don't.
we specified them for fire and EMS wages,
Okay,
and that kind of freed up some money in the general fund as well to do a few, to help us over the hump.
so then how are you compensating back for that money that's not going to be there anymore?
Good question. That's one reason we're taking the valuation, but we also have seen increases in our interest earnings and our sales tax, and that's helped us a lot. And the interest is starting to come down. I hate to see that, but we're learning to live within our budget.
Inflation took quite a bit of.
But yeah, it certainly helped to go with our interest income. It was down as low as what, 20,000,
We made 10,000 one year.
10,000, and then it, back up to 400 or 500. So that helps some, that interest income.
And sales tax has increased from 22 to 24, 30%. So that helps a lot too.
Some of that was inflation related
Right,
too.
that was
Yes.
inflation. That,
People are paying
that helps
more.
us, but it hurts
Hurts
the
people.
community.
Yeah.
I'll throw a curveball out there for you. Probably make a lot of people upset, and a lot of people maybe. Have you ever thought about adding a 0.5% sales tax to cover some of the outfits that, part of that 36% that ain't paying their fair share?
We have.
But my personal thoughts on that is it hurts the needy more than it hurts anyone because, it's an increase in their expenditures and I just have a hard time
Well, I get
with that.
too.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, we have.
when we brought in the, and I don't know a good way for it, the senior citizens type living out here off First Street, the only thing the city got out of that was water bill. But
Yeah.
yet we
Yeah.
fronted all of that.
Yep.
My guess
Yeah.
is with the hopes that we would sell their homes and put it back on the market or whatever else, but
Yeah.
does anybody know how that panned out? Did we get everybody from outside the county coming in and use them, or
I
or
think
they
it was,
filled them all, or what?
they're in phase 2. Have they started phase 2?
No.
They applied for their,
Yeah, they applied for it and didn't receive.
they didn't start it.
Yeah.
So that'll be us giving them more. So we'll get, out of a quad, we'll get one more water bill. How many people in Harvey County has moved into those complexes? And how many from out of county have moved into them complexes?
We don't have the
It'd be a good
census
idea
of
to-
those
Yeah.
units.
In other words, is it
people.
paying us off to do that, or are we just getting outside?
But the net effect, I mean, they live in the community and our hope is to get sales tax out of them. We got sales tax, water, sewer, trash.
And then possibly new families moving into their homes that they moved out of.
That was the
But
game plan.
only if they are from Harvey County.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reason I say, how many are from outside of Harvey County are moving into these areas?
I don't have that census.
So that would
No.
tell us how much real benefit we're achieving
Yeah, yeah,
from doing it.
That's true.
Just a thought, might
Yeah.
want to look into it.
sure.
I will clarify, we're not giving them the money. We are not taking the tax, property tax on the improvement. So
The development.
the development, so we're not getting new taxes, but we're not giving money away.
Yeah. We're,
The only benefit we're getting if we let them come in is just the water bills.
Utility bill. Yep.
And additional rooftops for members of our community.
Right, if it's our community and not outside.
They become residents if they are outside, so they are.
I know you'll get some sales tax of what do they buy and sell, but
it's not as good as if somebody put in an apartment complex.
Right.
We're paying.
so
that.
how's this going to work out here in the old golf course area? Is that all going to be on taxes?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. I knew we was doing it, but I was curious how that's found out.
I might add too, just this year, we have had 12 new single-family properties that have pulled building permits, 20 duplexes, 4 triplexes, and 1 multifamily living that has 11 living units. So that's 75 living units that would all be on the tax rolls this
How will
year.
the duplexes be treated with water bills?
each
Does
side
that
will
make
pay their
sense?
own,
They'll have their own meters.
yeah, separate
They'll
meters.
be metered. They'll each be metered.
Each one of them, the
I
duplex?
believe that's how they're going to do it. Even if they don't, they're still utilizing.
Well, I'm just looking to understand what kind of
Yeah.
income they're going to
Good questions,
generate.
Joe.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, yeah. Get up there and be famous.
I'm John Friesen. I live on West 12th Street, just west of Anderson. I was wondering, are they implementing something to where they don't have to drive by and check your water meters, where it'll be sent to the tower and the tower goes
I
to
I
the...
think we
Already
already
do.
do
We are,
some of
it,
those.
we are replacing those meters. In the next couple of years, we'll have them all changed. So we can do that. And customers can also see what their usage is.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering, because I spoke to one of them, city employees, and they said they're implementing that, but they didn't know whether it's going to work out or how long it would take.
It will. We're working on it. We won't have it quite done until 2027 because we've got a lot of meters that we're.
Oh,
It's in
okay.
the budget to do a little bit every year.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yep. Good discussions. Any other questions or?
I did want to say, if you want to come to my office, anytime, I'll help you go through that statement. See if I can
Yeah.
shed some light on it for you.
I will make a comment that
Sure.
would make you feel good. I was probably the person that called and asked how to get to know more about the candidates, and
Yeah.
I did watch your video.
Yeah. Good, good.
I did both.
Good for you. I like that. You were one of few that voted. So, yeah, that's one of the most important things a community can do is pick their leaders. You know, when you let such a small group pick them, some really bad things can happen. Okay. That's it, then I'll call this meeting over. And now we need to consider the adoption of the 2025 budget.
Yes, please.
No resolutions or ordinances, you just a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I move that we approve the budget as presented.
Got a motion?
Oh.
And a second, sounds like.
second.
Yeah, pardon me, second. I cut her off, so. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, budget is approved as presented. Taxable GO bonds, Series 2024B. Donna.
Yes, these are Newton's taxable obligation, general obligation bonds in the amount of $550,000. The proceeds of these bonds will be used to reimburse the city and to provide permanent financing for the Cow Palace Road sanitary sewer project. These bonds were issued as a taxable obligation as required by tax law when a project benefits a single property owner. The purchase of the bonds will pay income tax. The purchaser of the bonds will pay income tax on interest received from this investment. So given that there's a tax liability, investors generally require a higher yield than tax-exempt municipal bonds will give them. So because this was a small bond series, and it was it had taxes, and it was just a 10-year term, it was anticipated that it would draw little interest going on a nationwide competitive sale like we do our regular bonds. So a limited sale approach was used where invitations to bid were sent to 5 local banks. And on August 15th, the city received 1 bid for the bonds, and the bidder was Interest Bank at an interest rate of 6.75%. Now the commission will consider a resolution and an ordinance ratifying the sale and setting the terms of the bonds.
Okay.
And this will be paid, it's like a special assessment, so we will be paid back for it. We're paying it off in 10 years. They will have 20 years to pay it back to us, as usual on special assessments.
Okay. So, commissioners, do you have any comments or questions?
I move that we receive and award the Taxable General Obligation Bond Series 2024B to Interest Bank.
I second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Next part of this, we need an ordinance
Sure.
number.
That number is 5153-24.
I move we approve 5153-24.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve 5153-24. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now consider a resolution to provide the form and details of and authorizing the direct sale of the taxable GO bonds.
Yes, that number would be G-1343.
I move that we consider Resolution G1343, authorizing and directing the sale of Taxable General Obligation Bonds Series 2024B.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Receive a request from Habitat for Humanity to waive fees for a lot split at 604 East 10th. Suzanne.
Yes, Commissioners, in January of this year, Habitat for Humanity requested a fee waiver totaling $2,910.86 for construction to occur at 604 East 10th. That waiver was for building permit fees, but they're now asking, they're requesting a waiver for a lot split and a lot merger. You can see on the screen what has to occur in order for them to not have to replat this. We can't administratively do a lot merger where they merge the 2 lots together, but then they have to split them apart to be able to build 2 structures on them. The reason they have to merge them first is because one of these structures that's there currently is too close to the property line for us to be able to allow another one to be built. So they would merge, and then they would split, and they're asking for the fee waiver to allow them to do that without having to pay. That's a $200 waiver fee, and in the past, you have suggested, and staff does recommend this time, that transfer of the $200, which would go to the general fund, would be transferred from economic development funds to the general fund. And so we would ask that you consider approval of this waiver and then authorize staff to transfer those funds.
I move that we approve and authorize.
I'll second. Oh, I think she seconded.
Pick a second.
Melanie, I think I heard her second.
Yeah.
I second.
Okay,
Sorry, I didn't say it loud enough.
we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Consider an agreement with KDOT for the Safe Streets for All grant. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners, we've been talking about this a while. In July of 2023, we submitted for a grant application for a Safe Streets for All action plan for Newton and Harvey County. We then received verification that our project had been selected for federal grant funding, which was 80% of the cost of the study of the action plan. And then we received notice in January of this year that we had been selected by KDOT to have state funding to take care of the other 20%. This was one of the highest SS4A grants in the state. What this does, Safe Streets for All, is it's looking at vehicular traffic, truck traffic, pedestrians, bicycles, everybody that's utilizing modes of transportation. Those that have wealth, those that don't have wealth, all types of people. It's looking at all modes of transportation and all types of people. And what this action plan will do, not just citywide, but the county has partnered with us on this, would be looking at all of those. The state has a crash data that they provide, and we'd be looking at accident locations, and I've listed some of those here. This is how we presented it in our grant as well, that some of the known problem locations for this based on the Kansas Drive to Zero crash summary dashboard would be the North Main Corridor, Washington and Kansas Street Corridor, 12th Street Corridor, the freeway interchange intersections, and then several other locations that may be identified during that action plan. We will get to the part of the plan, but we have been waiting for over a year to get our federal grant agreement from the federal government. And we're continuing to wait on that. The state provided us with the grant agreement several months ago, and we were waiting to get the federal grant back, but we haven't gotten it yet. And the state said, go ahead and approve the state one. And then we finally received notification from the federal government that said, if you get the state grant approved, then we'll put that in the federal grant agreement. So I'm asking you to approve the state grant agreement, which is 20% of the funding of this action plan. We'll be taking it to the county. We'll need to take it to them as well. And then we'll come back to you once I have the federal grant agreement. And then at some point, we'll get to actually start the process of looking at all of these locations and looking at other locations in the community and areas where we need an action plan to make sure that our traffic ways are safe for everybody that's going to use them.
And
So-
these action plans, the results of it actually bolster your search for grant monies to fund.
It does. Yeah, once you have your action plan in place, then you can apply for federal implementation grant funds that might help us with multiple projects along these corridors and throughout the county. So what we're asking you to do this evening is to approve the state grant and allow the city engineer to sign all the associated paperwork. And we're asking you also that you would approve us sending out the RFP for the consultant, because we'll be hiring a consultant that will help with this action plan. And that way I don't have to bring it back to send that out. We'll bring you who we select, the committee selects, for you to approve. But we would ask that you approve us sending the RFP out so the state understands that's going to occur. We will be before you many more times on this.
Okay, so we need a motion. Any additional questions or discussion?
I motion that we accept the KDOT grant agreement.
And send out the RFP for the consultant
And allow me to sign the paperwork.
and allow her to sign the paperwork. Okay, that's our motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consider a resolution authorizing and finding advisable the pavement improvements for Spencer Road.
Commissioners, at our last commission meeting, we brought the Spencer paving project to you. We need to do some road improvements on Spencer from First to Southeast 14th Street. We held a public meeting. We had delivered notices to everybody that was adjacent to the project, held a public meeting following your meeting, the last meeting. And now Donna has prepared a funding agreement for you, a funding resolution for consideration. The project will be put out to bid, and then we'll bring back the bids like we do in our normal process, but we want to get the funding resolution approved prior to that. And that's what this is for.
Okay.
A resolution number would be I-1213.
Move we approve I-1213.
I second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve Resolution I-1213. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chris, Murdoch Properties.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. This is a zoning change request from Lou Rebelli of Murdoch Properties. This is for property located at the intersection of Southeast 12th and Hillside here in the city. It's currently zoned I-2. There was an application to change it to I-3. And as you are all aware, the city has 3 industrial zoning designations, I-2 or I-1, which is light, I-2, which is general, and I-3, which is heavy. This was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission at a public hearing on August 5th. Their recommendation is that approval. I would stand for any questions. The information is in the packet. The applicant is not here tonight. He said he would be here at the next meeting. There's actually 2 adjacent lots, both with a request from I-2 to I-3. We're doing it piece by piece. So we're doing this lot tonight, then the Planning Commission will hear the other one, and it'll come forward on the second. I would stand for any questions. Staff could stand for any questions as well on this.
Okay, comments or questions?
It's good to see the Planning Commission approved it unanimously.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there'd be a 2-part action. First would be a formal motion to receive the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and then the second motion would be to decide on the zoning ordinance.
I move that we receive the recommendation of the Newton Planning Commission for a zoning amendment from I-2 to classification to an I-3 classification on Southeast 12th Street for Murdoch Properties.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ordinance number.
That would be 5154-24.
And I would move that we change, that we approve the ordinance 515424.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We don't have anybody signed up on Citizens Forum, so let's just go around the horn, and if anybody has any good news or comments they want to make.
I just want to say that I appreciate the community coming in and challenging us and sharing your experiences with your increased taxes and how that affects you. It does. To me, I think it's helpful when we get challenged because it kind of gives it like a devil's advocate type of thing, and then we get to, kind of get a better understanding of where the people in the community are with our decisions. So I do appreciate people coming forward and challenging us to think about things in different ways.
Okay.
Yeah, good point. I also, I back that up of thanking all the people who come, and because it seems like so few people come and are part of this, And I also appreciate, Mr. Mayor, the comments that you prepared there, kind of giving us some history of where we've been and where we are now and where we're going, because I think that's really important in the big picture, because all 5 of us up here feel your pain. We're all in this together. We're all in the same boat here. We all pay the same taxes, and they're all going up, and all the groceries and the fuel. And so it's painful. And I think we all spend a great deal of time trying to make the very best decisions. And as the mayor said, there is no other way but to slowly expand our tax base to make this thing change. And that's what we're finally, man, that ship is turned around now, and we finally have momentum going. I don't know that we've reached critical mass yet, but we're getting closer. So we're definitely going in the right direction, and it'll just be a matter of I don't know how many, just a number of years till a lot of this is going to pay off, and those tax dollars are going to come back into our tax coffers. So anyways, I appreciate everybody having patience, and we hear your concerns. We're there. We pay the same thing. Trust me. None of us here are ultra wealthy. We're just common citizens like everybody else. So
Exactly.
that's it.
No, sir.
No, sir.
I want to thank you all for a good, long budget season. Thank you very much.
I want to thank staff for all their hard work on this budget. I started about 7 or 8 months ago, and it feels like from day one we've been working on this budget. So it's nice to get it approved and moved on to the big stuff.
The next thing.
So thank you very much.
And I say thank you to the citizens who've come tonight. This is an encouragement. It's an encouragement because we feel like someone's are listening and they care. And I do say thank you to those who are watching online too. I know there are several that do that, and thank you for taking the time to do that. That's very important too. And your comments are certainly welcome as well. And thank you to staff for another good budget season and all of the work that staff did to help this come together. We're very appreciative. So thank you.
Don't really have much to add other than to echo my appreciation for community participation, staff's efforts. They know that when we come out with the tough questions that they'll have answers. This body has been questioning of some of the budget planning and everything, and I think that's good. If you don't ask the questions, you're not going to get the information, and I think it was a good budget season. That's it.
Okay. I just want everybody to know how accessible city staff and these commissioners are. And I don't know how many times I've gone to Norm's. I only do it at Norm's, though. If I can't go to Norm's, I might not meet with you. But I do enjoy, I have been blessed in life with having experience that I feel like is really helpful with the process that we're going through, and it really means a lot to me when I can sit down with people face to face, and just talk about kind of the pathway that we've been on. I know it can get a little long, and it might not seem so long when you're taking a sip of coffee every once in a while, but we are accessible, and I know I've seen Kathy and Rich and Leroy and Melanie, that they're more than happy to share, what their feelings are about kind of the direction things are headed in, and the city's here for you, and I think sometimes in the anger that people have because inflation seems to be really a tough deal right now, and with us being in the election season, everybody just kind of seems like they're hacked off. So I don't want that feeling to spill over into local elected officials. We do live here, like everybody said, and we care, we really care about the people that we represent. We certainly don't, we're here because we care. There's not a one of us that ran for elected office to get the $200 a month that we get in order to do what we do. So just remember, like Leroy said, you know, we're citizens too, and what are we doing here? Yeah.
Well, you get more than we do.
Oh, yeah.
'cause you're the mayor.
I'm the mayor. I get like $20 a month more than they do, which I usually spend at Norm's buying people's coffee. But anyway, we love this community, and we do appreciate you guys showing up and asking questions, and do know if you do have questions, ask somebody. You know, we don't want you simmering on something. We really do try to minimize the tax dollars that we assess to do the operations that we feel like is absolutely necessary to continue on the pathway that we're on. But we do appreciate input, and we all talk to lots of people every year. You know, just sharing our thoughts and trying to make them understand that we're in this for the long haul. So things will be better, and things already are better. Tomorrow we'll celebrate some economic development wins at a luncheon at our Harvey County Economic Development Annual Meeting at 11:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll hear a guy talk about how economic development isn't for sissies, or I think that's the name of his book. So anyway, thank you for coming, and we appreciate you. So take care, and I adjourn this meeting.